Welcome to the Speak Like a Leader podcast with John Bates. Welcome to the show. With me today is someone that I had the distinct pleasure of supporting with her TEDx talk. And she's somebody who just deeply inspires me. You know that I am in love with outer space. I'm a big science fiction fan. I love NASA. So that whole world just excites me. And Nancy is someone who prepares people for space travel who are not NASA astronauts, who are not U.S.A. astronauts. She's working with people that are going to be going up on the private missions. And her story is one that deeply inspires me, that I think you will get something really powerful from. And I think you're going to enjoy meeting Nancy Vermeulen. So Nancy, welcome to the show.
Hello, John.
So Nancy, you're in Belgium. And if people want to find you, they can go to www.nancyvermeulen.be. And I'm going to spell that NANCYVERMEULEN.be, which is a pretty cool ending suffix. It's Belgium, but it says B. So nancyvermeulen.be. And so, Nancy, welcome to the show. I would love it if you would tell everybody a little bit about what you do. And then I'd love to get into the story of how you ended up doing that and that, that dark moment that preceded it. So tell us what you do.
Hello, John. So yes, I train private astronauts. So let's say that we bridge between companies like Virgin Galactic, SpaceX, or Blue Origin, and people who are asking themselves, can I physically and mentally handle the fast accelerations? I want to know everything about space. So we do a crash course in space and astronomy, but really tailor-made. Then we go to a very special simulator in the Netherlands. And there we simulate a launch to the moon. We dock with the International Space Station. We do a landing with a space shuttle, a complete commercial flight. And during these high-end simulations, you will experience the G levels, the transition between high G and almost zero G, let's say.
Yep.
And we can really coach people through this whole process.
Wow.
And it's also one of the closest experiences you can get of real space.
So if you're excited about going to space, even if you never end up going there, you could get the next best thing by coming and doing this simulation with you, Nancy. Yeah?
Exactly. Yeah.
So
and then, if you're doing well doing a simulation, we go to real aircraft and we do a zero G flight. And just
cool.
If you don't know what zero G flight is, we take a small business jet and we play a little bit with gravity. So first of all, we fly uphill, we mount, and then you experience 2 to 3 times your weight here on Earth. You are very heavy. And on the top of the mountain, the pilot pushes the aircraft down and you start floating like a real astronaut. And this maneuver we repeat 10 times. And during each parabola, let's say you are about 12 to 14 seconds weightless.
Wow. That's really, really cool. That sounds, I would love to do that. I got to say, sooner or later, I'm going to come with you, Nancy, on one of these.
So you experience weightlessness, let's say, yeah.
Yeah, I want to do that. Oh my gosh. I want to do the whole thing. It's like astronaut camp with Nancy Vermeulen, right? So
yes.
You have a cool job, but it was painful finding this, wasn't it? Will you tell us that story?
Oh, let's say I've always been passionate by space and astronomy, and it took a long road to find my place here on Earth at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when I was 5 to 6 years old, I looked up at the sky. I was really drawn in the beauty of the night sky, and I imagined that when I would be a grown up, that flying to space would be as normal as taking an airplane. Huh?
Yeah.
And in my imagination, I took a spaceship. I flew around some planets. I enjoyed them. I took a picnic at the other side of the Earth. And the same evening, I just came back home. That was what I expected to be normal. I grew up in the 80s when the space shuttles went up. And I thought, yeah, when I'm a grown-up, they will start looking for astronauts just like they're looking for pilots. Huh?
Yeah.
But yeah, a couple of years later, 30 years later, I started realizing that acceleration was not that fast. Huh? Becoming an astronaut was still for pioneers, so not a common job. I started to study astrophysics. When I was 17, I met our first Belgian astronaut, Dirk Freemout. And I asked him, what do I need to do to become an astronaut? You know, we're living in Belgium, not in the United States. It's not so obvious how to become an astronaut or to find a way to do space studies. It was not existing by that time. And Freemout, he told me, listen up, if you study physics or something in science, and later you gain some operational experience, you will be good. Huh? Physics was my passion already, so it was obvious I would study astrophysics. And then becoming an airline pilot was the next obvious step. So I did that. But I was not really supported at that time. I was a girl in a quite conservative environment. And let's say in my environment, becoming a good wife, finding a successful husband would be the way to have a very happy and successful life. So you could do studies, of course, but it was not done as a girl to have a big career. So was some hassle to find my way through. So doing astrophysics was fine. And I think my environment was thinking, she will probably find a successful man and then it's over. But it was not over. When I got my degree in astrophysics, I really wanted to become a pilot, which was a challenge because becoming a pilot at the airlines, it costs an enormous amount of money. In Europe, let's say, if you do university studies, the government pays for almost everything. You don't have to pay your teachers. You don't have to pay for the buildings. But to become an airline pilot, you have to pay for everything.
Yeah.
So right now, becoming an airline pilot here costs 100,000 euros. So having that to find the money, I had to do a lot of work. At the end, my parents just how do you say that? Took a loan on their house, mortgage. They took a mortgage on their house in order to convince the bank to give me that amount of money to become an airline pilot. Then, of course, we had 9/11, and I was not going to have a job very quickly. I had to wait about almost a year before our national flag carrier, Sabina, would hire me. And waiting a year was no option for me because, of course, you need to pay back that amount of money, and you need to keep your flight licenses valid too.
Yeah.
Luckily, I found a job at DHL as a cargo pilot. Flying cargo is just fine, but the environment was some people were looking down at it because it's not so prestigious as flying passengers in their opinion.
Yeah.
To me, it was fine. I enjoyed it a lot. I started flying cargo in Europe, later in Africa and the Middle East. But of course, it was flying a lot at night, very irregular hours, and that was not so fine for my body.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
For me, it was very tough, especially because after a couple of years, I started questioning my choice. Like, I became an airline pilot, but I'm not flying a lot. As a cargo pilot, you don't fly that amount of hours as a regular passenger airline pilot to do.
Yeah.
So I was questioning my choice. Wouldn't it have been better to just have done a PhD and to have continued in the academic world? So I decided to start a PhD as well, besides my job as a pilot. And then, of course, I started doing a lot of side jobs, teaching physics and mathematics, because I wanted to pay back the loan as soon as possible. On top of that, I decided to augment my chances to become an astronaut if the opportunity one day would arise. So in my free time, I did diving, mountaineering, a lot of things to increase my possible chances.
Yeah.
And guess what? I just forced my body and my mind. Yeah. And I had to pay back a couple of years later.
Yeah.
After a couple of years, my body started to give me warning signs. I became sick very easily, started to have stomach problems. But again, I wasn't raised to observe these signs, let alone give attention to them.
Yeah.
On top of that, I was thinking, finally, I'm here. My environment has not been very supportive in the past. If I show a sign of weakness, I cannot do that, because then the environment will say, you see, it's all your own fault. Why did you have this high ambition? So I continued until at a certain moment I had to stop. And I ended up in a complete burnout, physically and mentally, and I ended up in a serious
I know what that's like. You know, I did the same thing.
Really?
Yeah, I almost died of an autoimmune disease, after I lost my big, my big company, big words. I was one of 4 co-founders and raised over $80 million and then went out of business. And I was so ashamed and so upset and so angry and so hurt and scared. I almost died of an autoimmune disease. And a big part of that was that I was sleeping 4 hours a night, 5 hours a night, and I think that we don't get trained to look for those or to pay attention. In fact, what we get trained to do is shove that down, think of that as weakness and just bowl over it, right? Well, I almost died because I did that. It's not a good idea. There's a much better way, right?
I know. So yeah, me too. I lost my medical license. So I could give up my dream of becoming an astronaut. So yeah.
But you applied to be an astronaut, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. Actually, I did, Sean. Yeah. No, and then, of course, the environment starts talking to you. You listen up. Just forget your dreams. Become normal, do a normal job, and so on. But of course, after you recover, because you will recover. If you have a burnout and a depression, you will get out of it one day. So, and once you are healthy again, you start thinking, what now? What do I really want to do in my life? Okay, I have a passion, but maybe the way I was pursuing that passion is not the right way. Maybe there are other ways, and there are a lot of other ways. But first of all, I wanted to see how far I would make it in astronaut selection. So I applied to become an astronaut in 2008. For that, I needed to do my medical license back. I had to do a lot for that, to find a doctor to give me the final clearance, but I succeeded. I started to become a flight instructor, working on regular hours, teaching, combining it with some consulting, which was fine. And out of 10,000 candidates for the ESA astronaut selection in 2008, I made it approximately to the last 400.
Which is pretty spectacular.
Not so bad, but not so good. But I was like, okay, I tried, and I learned a lot about myself. I met some nice people, and just by doing things, you progress. Even if you know at the end you will not make it to the finals because you have this medical history. But at least you try, and by keep trying, new ways open up. Because in 2010, I got the opportunity to do a Mars simulation mission. So
this is cool.
Yeah. Because I applied to become an astronaut, new people showed up on my roads, and I saw new opportunities. And 2010, I was a commander of a Mars simulation mission in Utah. And the idea was to do this simulation not only with scientific or people or engineers, but also people with an artistic background, teachers. So let's say the youngest participant was 17 years old and the oldest was already in her 50s. That was a very nice experiment.
Yeah.
Because one day, if we want to settle on the moon or Mars, there will not only be engineers of a certain age group, there will be everybody.
Yeah. 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 I mean, you told me a story about that. You had a really, really big moment at that mission, didn't you? What was that moment? Will you tell us that?
Yeah. You were there in the middle of nowhere, which, yeah, for somebody living in Belgium is quite an experience.
Yeah. Yes.
The night sky was overwhelming, and I imagined myself, I was standing there in that space van, that's a simulated space shoot. I looked up at the night sky again. I saw myself back being a young girl, and I imagined, yeah, one day, if we are really standing on the planet Mars, we see the same, almost the same night sky, but then the tiny speck, which is Mars right now, that's we cannot see. That tiny blue speck that we can see from Mars is the Earth.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God. Imagine that you look up at the night sky and one of these tiny, tiny little spots is just planet Earth. It's so overwhelming.
Yeah.
It puts things into perspective, and yeah, it was just great, John.
Yeah. That's an amazing moment. That had a big impact on your outlook after that, didn't it?
Oh, let's say that since I was a young girl, I used to put things into perspective, but that aha moment was a special one indeed.
Yeah. That's really cool. That's really cool. And then how did you make the switch? Because, I mean, on one hand, you had just spent your entire life preparing to be an astronaut. And then you applied, you made it very, very far, and you didn't get accepted as an U.S.A. astronaut. Yeah. Okay. Now what do you do? Like everything that you aimed your whole entire life at didn't work out the way you wanted it to. How did you, because I mean, I got to imagine that there was at least a moment where you got sad about that. And then there was that moment where you had some kind of a breakthrough, right? So will you tell us about what that was like?
It goes in steps. Huh? So first of all, I crashed a couple of years before the U.S.A. astronaut selections. And I made it not into the finals, to be clear. So, yeah, you have already a realistic image. Huh? But then, of course, you're still hoping to get through it. But then I realized that living like an astronaut, having the mindset of an astronaut, being a pioneer, is more important than really be a professional astronaut. Astronauts, they have a kind of exploration mindset. They put things into perspective. And it's not because I'm not an astronaut that I cannot think like an astronaut and be a pioneer. My grandfather, when he was still alive, he asked me, Nancy, why are we not standing on Mars? When I was still working, we were standing on the moon. And I was thinking, oh my God, what are we doing right now? We are just flying at the International Space Station at an altitude of 400 kilometers. The moon is 1,000 times further. And at the end of the 60s, the beginning of the 70s, people were walking over there. And right now, 50 years later, almost, where are we? And I felt ashamed for my whole generation almost. And my grandfather also give me the idea like, listen up. You youngsters, you think like spoiled children. Don't take things for granted. If things are not existing, just make it happen.
Yeah.
So in 2008, when I was not selected, I was thinking back at him a lot of times. I was like, oh my God, this generation just had World War II. They had to rebuild everything from scratch. look at me right now, a spoiled child complaining that she didn't become an astronaut. So, John, yeah. Just if things are not there yet, I was like, just come on, pave the way, start working on it.
Yeah.
And that's how I started taking initiatives. I was like, okay, be an astronaut the chance is very low, but opening up space for more people so that maybe more people will go to space is maybe my task in my life.
Yeah.
So I organized a zero gravity flight for the Belgian radio and television. I organized a Mars conference at the University of Antwerp, where I got a lot of good connections. Like I told you already, I did a Mars simulation mission. So there's so many things you can do to start paving the way, the way. And that's how I came in contact in 2011 with Sir Richard Branson too.
Yeah.
I was invited as a specialist to be on the main table during a lunch with Sir Richard Branson himself.
Yeah.
And this was really amazing.
Yeah.
About 100 CEOs, typical men, of course, here, were paying 1,000 euros to be at a lunch with Sir Richard Branson. And I was just invited as a specialist to be on the main table with him. So during that reception,
which must have been a little bit scary, right? Like, were you nervous about that?
A little bit.
But it was such an opportunity, right?
Yeah, before the lunch, we had a reception. And, all these men, they were not really paying attention for who I really was, what I did in my life. Some of them were looking, okay, she might be nice. Others were like, okay, she's just average, But then they saw me on the main table with Richard Branson. I'll talk later about this.
Yeah.
But after the dinner, we had a coffee table. And then they start swarming around me. Yeah, they still didn't know who I was or what I did. But then, the glass ceiling didn't exist anymore. I was also a VIP or a god or whatever. So it all was so artificial and so crazy, John. That was an experience. And at the end, somebody like him is just human too. He was very nice to talk, very low profile, very accessible.
I hung out with him on Necker Island a couple of years ago and got to hear him talk and got to actually hang out with him a little bit one-on-one. And I was tremendously impressed, because he's got a much bigger than life persona and he lives up to that. And he's also a very down-to-earth guy and just a kind, good human being from my experience. I was really, really very happily surprised,
Yeah, me too. And he explained me that as a young boy, he wanted to walk on the moon, but he realized that he didn't have the right profile, the right stuff, like they were talking about, and those times. But at the end, he continued pursuing his dream, and having had a huge. If you build up such an empire and you still try to change the world and to pursue your dream, that's great.
Yeah.
John was not waiting for anybody to give him permission to do something.
Yes.
He just does things. And I was like, why would I be so afraid for selections or people who can give me opportunities or not? I just have to do things.
Yeah.
That was the biggest lesson that I got there.
Yeah. That's a great lesson. And that's what you went and did.
Yes, that was when I decided to start a space training academy.
Yeah. So awesome. That's so awesome. So Richard Branson's one person who had an impact on your life and your outlook on leadership and everything. What else, what else do you think from all of your experiences and from that space angle and the astronaut angle and the pioneer angle, what else what are some other good leadership lessons that you've learned along the way? Who's made a difference, or is there a saying or a book or whatever that has really impacted you?
It's continuous evolution better. It's continuous evolution. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's say that by being an alien as a child, I was a little bit on my own. My special interest of space, of course, made me tough, because I was used to get comments, not to be accepted, and so on. And I got used not to take this personal. That's a very important thing.
It's Nancy.
I played a very important role too. Huh?
Who's that?
My parents.
Yes.
Played an important role.
Yeah.
Both of them, and then of course when I was in a public observatory, I got good friends. So let's say, John, that during my life, at the right time, at the right moment, I met the right people. And somehow you have this crossroads in your life where you think like, what now? But then you meet people who just give you that sparkle of energy that you need.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, how we met too.
I think so. Yeah. Yes. It was magical. Yeah. So, one of the things, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this, but one of the things that I kind of wish I could do is go back and talk to the little kid in each of us and tell them when they're at that stage, hey, you know what? The thing that everybody's teasing you about right now, and the thing that, they give you a hard time about and everything, that's going to end up being one of your superpowers. So don't you let it get it down. Don't you let it get you down. Don't take it personally. And don't you let go of that spark, because that is the thing, So to everybody's inner child, to your inner child, when you're listening right now, I want you to go back, hug that little kid and tell them, hey, thanks for not letting the world beat you down. Thanks for being you, Nancy, because it strikes me that as in some ways, because you didn't get what you thought you wanted, you got something in some ways even better, right? You are arguably even more of a pioneer than had you become an U.S.A. astronaut and gotten that desire. You got pushed out to the fringe, the real explorer, the real pioneer edge, without the safety net and without the ropes and, free climbing this thing. And I think a lot of us got teased about what ended up becoming our superpower,
I think you summarized it very well, John. Thanks for that. And it's true. As a child, you know very well what your passions are. And when we grow up, unfortunately, the environment puts you down because they want the best. They think they want the best for you. They want to put you somewhere in the society. But that's not how it works for a lot of people, at least not for me. And I think for you neither.
Yeah.
When people try to put me on a place they want, I don't feel happy. On the contrary, when I go back to that inner child, and if I feel again the passion that I had by then, and I translate it to what I do now, that's when I feel I'm really alive.
Yeah.
That's what makes me happy.
Yeah, that's so great. Well, so I notice we're kind of coming up on our time here. I wonder, is there anything I didn't ask you about, or is there a story or a thought that you would just love to share to kind of wrap up this time together, Nancy?
Be a captain of your own life.
Excellent. Excellent. Excellent.
Yeah.
Be the captain of your own life.
Your limits. Mm-hmm.
And say that last thing again.
And let the sky never be your.
And let the sky never be your limit. Yeah. Keep going past the sky, right? Yeah. Okay. I love it. Nancy, it's just a joy to get to spend some time with you again. We got to spend that concentrated amount of time talking so often for a while. And I'm glad you're well. It's great to see you. Thanks for joining us here. I think that you are a shining example of someone, I mean, what I know about you and what I've experienced of you is that you are somebody who goes for it. And I want to thank you for hanging on to that dream, even through the process of losing that dream. You hung on to it and morphed it into something arguably even more exciting and better. And, thank you for that. And thanks for taking the time to be here with us today. And I wish you all the best. And if you want to check out Nancy's website, it's www.nancyvermeulen, which is NANCYVERMEULEN.be. B for Belgium. Take good care of all those great breweries over there, and have. I wish you a really great weekend. We're recording this on a Friday, and I want you to.
Great to be here on your show. Yeah.
Oh, you're super welcome. And I would love for you to keep us up to date on what you're doing. And, if you got any exciting events coming up, please let me know and I'll share it with our listeners and, try and make it myself if I can. So
I will post it on social media too. So
great. And people can find your social media at your website?
Yes. If you just type my name, you will find me.
Awesome. Okay. Well, thanks for coming. And the sky is not the limit. Here's to being the captain of your own life and not letting the sky be the limit. Keep going past the sky.
Exactly, Tom.
Thanks,
Will do.
Nancy.
Have a nice weekend. Bye-bye.
Thank you. You too. Thank you for joining the Speak Like a Leader podcast. Go be awesome.